What is Earthen Rhythms? How can a passion turn into a career and a business? And how is drumming related to mental health? Well, if you'd like to find out, you're in the right place. Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and share their stories and wisdom with the world. In this episode, we conversed with Benjie about Earthen Rhythms and what drumming can do for us as humans. Just before we get started, if you enjoy listening to this episode, I'd like to invite you to leave a star rating on whichever service you found us, and also the opportunity to join the Between Views Patreon community for regular updates and ideas. These are the best ways you can support the podcast. We hope you enjoy. We are recording. All right, Benjie, welcome to Between Views. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, great. Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. My pleasure. I have a little blurb here that I've written for you. Benjie is the owner and creator of Earthen Rhythms, where they live, breathe, play, and love rhythms. He's been facilitating African drumming classes and workshops for over 20 years, I believe.
Yep.
Including drumming for recovery, Ushan preschool programs, drum making, corporate team building, drum circle facilitation training, private and adult classes, and a lot more. He performs with his students and drum team at live events throughout the Newcastle and Hunter region. In the times I've witnessed Benjie perform, which I have before, did you know that?
Yeah, Olive Tree.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's been lively, energetic, and controls the attention of the crowd with ease, all the while easily inspiring others to join and dance. It's contagious. All of the above. He teaches my mum drumming, and I can never catch her without a smile on her face when she talks about it. She's been truly inspired, and as a matter of fact, she's recommended you as a guest for Between Views, and thankfully you've decided to come onto the show, so welcome.
Yeah, good. Yeah, awesome. No, great intro. Thank you.
So Benjie, let's jump straight into it.
Mm-hmm.
My first question is, why did you become a drummer in the first place? What's the story?
Yeah, well, it's a really just by chance. Yeah. At uni, a friend of mine, I was in a share house. There was about 8 of us in this share house. She saw a poster on the wall of a cafe, on the window of a cafe. And from there, she came back and said, hey, look, I've just seen this poster. We've been talking about doing something together. There's this drumming activity in our local grandstand in Richmond in New South Wales. And yeah, we could go and check it out. And so we did. We went. Mm-hmm. And look, I was just hooked from the word go. We got into it as a social thing. It was just purely for fun.
Yeah.
There was only 2 students there before the 8 of us rocked up. So we had then an instant class of 10, or my teacher did. And he was just an awesome guy. There's a lot to it. He was a life mentor, it turned out later on, but also an inspiration for me, because growing up in Western Sydney, very much a drugs and alcohol kind of culture there, out in Richmond, in northwest Sydney, and in Western Sydney. But he was drug and alcohol free. So it's a very unusual, really lovely guy, engaging, quiet, but a performer as well. So I could relate to that, sort of being introverted extrovert in some ways. So there was more to it than just the drums, of course. My girlfriend at the time, she bought a drum, but she later on gave it to me and just said, hey, you love this and it's a passion of yours. Because I started with that class. Quickly I went to his class up in the Blue Mountains, and then I was going to African classes once a week in Bondi Junction.
When you say African classes, what do you mean?
African drumming, African drumming class, but by an African guy. Like it quickly snowballed from 1 class a week with my mates to 3 times a week.
How quickly?
Yeah, well, probably over the course of 6 to 9 months, I would say.
Yeah.
Probably going to the Blue Mountains pretty much straight away, like within a couple of months.
So for you, this was an instant hit?
It was, yeah, with my friends, and we were all in it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it. And we had, so what happened, we weren't taking drugs or using alcohol or anything like that. It was just very much a clean living type of house. We'd have big parties, but the drums became an integral part of that. So everywhere we went, the drums went. Everywhere we were was an instant party. People were dancing, there was drumming. We were going to pubs, and it was the drinkers were drinking, but those who weren't, they were drinking lemonade or whatever they were drinking.
Yeah.
But I remember at New Year's Eve, we had these drums up on stage and the whole place was dancing. We were not very good drummers, but it was a party and we were creating this energy.
Okay. How many of you were there?
Well, I don't know, maybe 12 to 15 or something like that.
Wow.
It was.
That's a big crew to have together straight away. Did you meet them through?
This is just my uni mates, the extended community that we had. We had that share house, which was a real hub, and they're beautiful people. We're doing a lot of people doing social ecology, so they're into, positive community making, and that wasn't without its ripples, but its negative ripples, but and personalities. But when we had gatherings and when we did things, we often just took the drums and had jams. So it was just a really great thing. So I always just kept it alive. That's really, I know the next questions will lead on further. But that's really what got me into it. Just I felt good when I was doing it. I was with my friends. It was like a party. It was clean living and clean joy.
How old were you?
Just in my early 20s.
And it was clean living in the early 20s.
Yeah.
So I find that one particularly surprising because I think back to my early 20s and it's like, I don't think many people think that much about clean living when you're growing up. So that's quite a unique situation you found yourself in. Yeah,
I guess so. But I was at uni doing my environmental degree. I was doing, as I said, social ecology type electives, hanging out with a social ecologist. We'd organise a student conference about sustainability. So there was a big hub of us around. There's a lot going on as it does in uni. We had an organic food cooperative, so I was around people living that kind of lifestyle. There was a place called Earth Care, so people were growing the food on the university site. The cooperative, the food cooperative, was on the university site. At one stage I managed the cooperative with some other people. And so I was getting up and going to the wholesalers and collecting all the veggies and selling these veggie boxes to a heap of people. So it was a big operation.
So it seems like drumming fit naturally into the healthy lifestyle community.
Drumming was just another part of it, yeah.
Just another part.
Another part. So we were doing yoga and stretching and movement and acro yoga and all these sort of things that, I don't know, everybody's doing them now, but it wasn't as common back then.
Yeah, wow. So you kind of like leading the way back then, really. In some ways. That's cool. And that was in Richmond, Sydney.
Yeah,
Hawkesbury
Uni.
And then, so that was where it came out. You had friends, you had community, and you liked it. And when it first came along for you, it just clicked instantly. And you were like, right, this is the thing I'm going to go with. And you just kind of kept following what you enjoyed, where your community was.
Absolutely. Like for me, I was always into music, loved listening to music, but I always loved being part of it as well. When I was around about 8 to 9 years old, I started piano lessons. I played classical guitar later on, and rock guitar, and I was in a band, but I was tone deaf, and they put me up as a singer, and I knew I was bad, but nobody else was doing this stuff. But when drumming came along, it was just for me. You didn't have to sing, and I just could get the expression out that was in me.
Just African drums, or how do you go on other sort of percussion instruments?
I'm good with them because I can apply what I've learnt from African drumming. But what resonates with me out of all the South American drumming, the Irish frame drumming, other drumming that we see, kit drumming, it just doesn't call me congas even. Doesn't call me like the djembe. It's just my thing.
The djembe is the one.
The djembe has got my heart.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
I think for me it's a hard one to nail down. But because it's got that deep bass, but it's got the high treble. I'm a physical person. I've come from a physical background. The physical kind of fighting scenes of Western Sydney. So for me, and like a really tough culture. So I've grown up in that, and so I think that essence of masculinity, that expression of when you're in the zone and in the flow of really using your body, appealed to me. But also just that you can do it together as well. Would
you say drumming is a healthy way to express masculine strengths.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And surprisingly, most of my students are female. But I know in freeform drumming around Newcastle and Sydney and other places, there's many males that do it.
What's freeform drumming?
Like just like drum circles that aren't facilitated or led.
Yeah.
You know, they're not
Gotcha.
they're not a class. They're not going, let's play this African rhythm.
You just turn up with your drum.
Turn up with your drum, have a good time.
Those can turn into some real fun times.
Oh, absolutely.
Been to a couple before.
Yeah.
I think you used to host them, didn't you? The full moon ones, was that you?
Yeah, I've hosted many.
Yeah.
These days, like there's other people that are doing it.
Yeah.
In fact, the one that is in Newcastle, I started. So, but it's been taken on. I've since been, removed from the Facebook administrator role because other people have it. You know, and people, I didn't want to be initiating it all the time. So I'm happy that it's there. I'm happy not to be an initiator or a governor or an administrator, but it's somebody's taken up that mantle and I don't have to do it, but it's there and it brings me joy.
That must feel good to know, like you started something and then that legacy just kind of carries on. Someone else is willing to pick up something that you brought to the space.
Sure. Yeah, it is a good feeling.
That's special.
I get no acknowledgement, I don't think. Like it's just, but it's I know it. It makes me feel good that I know it's there, and I started, and it really was something I wanted to do. So I just encourage people to go.
So intrinsically, that feels good.
Yeah.
To know. Oh, that's nice. Well, so after all of that, it kind of built up for you. It became a way to express yourself. Became a way to express your physicality as a man. It became something that you were starting to create with, which is I'm fascinated by. When we love things, we start to add content to the world naturally. I don't mean like online content. I just mean like we go and add sound. Playing drum, add sound. That's add content. When we love it, we put more content in the world. So that's why I think it's worth engaging with these things. You decided at one point that, right, I love this so much, I want to keep doing this. And then at some point you arrived at Earthen Rhythms. What's the story with Earthen Rhythms?
Yeah, well, like we're talking. So I started in '97. Really, the first touch of the drum. That kind of going to the park lessons. Then quickly went to all those 3 classes, and then I was going to 10-day drum and dance camps once a year. My teacher left the Hawkesbury. He could only focus on stuff in the Blue Mountains because of his family situation. A friend of mine who was drumming with me, an older guy, he took the opportunity to keep the class going. So I would go and support him as a teacher and bring back rhythm. We'd both be going to and learning rhythms, but I'd be supporting him, But I was learning. It was clear that I was learning faster than him, but he was also passionate about dancing, and I was probably less passionate about that, but I loved it. But he, for some reason or another, couldn't keep teaching in the area. So he asked me, would I teach? And I didn't want to teach. I was happy just being a student and just doing my thing. I was always going to be an environmental manager. But it was really that process of I didn't step forward, the others stepped back, and then I stepped into that role of leading the group. And we kept getting asked to do events, so you're performing like street carnivals and things like that. So they really kept saying, well, what's your name? What's your group name?
Yeah.
So then, none of this I'm actively asking for. It's just that I'm there. And I'm passionate about it. So I went, well, what's a great name for a drumming group? And for me, the circadian rhythms in life, the ebbs and flows. I was into the environment and wanting to be an environmental manager. So innately humans are from the earth. So for me, Earthen Rhythms, even though it's 2 of the hardest words for people to remember and say in the English language, it seems, in succession, it appealed to me because we're making sounds of the earth. I'm trying to get people to understand their place on earth that is kind of back to the roots in a way of primal essence. And rhythms is just, the representation of all of the sounds that come from the drum. So that's where it came from, yeah. And Earthen Rhythms officially started in 2002. and yeah, I came to Newcastle in 2004. So this is my 20th year of being here in Newcastle doing this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah.
When you look back on that, how does it make you feel?
Old. No, it feels good. It's an interesting path to sit here and say like I'm a full-time drummer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like sliding door moments.
Like what?
So many. So obviously 2002 it started with like the Carnivale and the Hawkesbury and us drumming there. I finished my uni degree. I came to Newcastle. I only came here for 6 months to do some environmental work. I got the job in the Hawkesbury, but then when I actually later on, when I left the interview or after they said you've got it, they rang me and said, "Oh, sorry, the person that had the position has come back, and we really want to offer that back to them, but we have the same job in Newcastle. Would you like to do that?" And I really wanted to live in Bellingen.
In Bellingen, near Coffs.
Yeah. So that's where I was headed.
Yeah.
I came here for 6 months, and then Newcastle just threw opportunity after opportunity at me.
Oh, really? It was the place throwing you opportunities. Like, no matter where you wanted to live, this place was like, no, look at all this stuff you could do here.
Exactly. It had the people, the beaches, the work that I wanted to do. So I finished my environmental degree. I focused on getting into national parks and I majored in environmental education and wilderness management. That was just like a double major, and did honours in human nature connection. So it was really sort of about human psychology with nature and getting people to reconnect to the natural world. I taught young Australians for the environment. So initially I had a 6-month job contract to do this leadership role. And so in doing that, I had to be at the Wetlands Centre. The CEO there saw me leading these guys. And then I was offered a job to redo the Green Corps for the next 6 months. But she said, "Look, I really want you to actually come and be a site manager for us." And at the same time, the Wilderness Society needed a branch manager, and both were part-time initially. So I took both opportunities. Drumming was just, once a week. Because I loved it, I just wanted to keep the thing rolling.
Right.
There was a big drum teacher here in Newcastle, but I had moved him to Sydney. He moved to Sydney when I moved here, so we did this kind of exchange. I came from Sydney, he went to Sydney, and he's still a good friend of mine. And had this massive group called Repercussion, but mainly samba was their focus. So
you ever get into Latin rhythms and things like that?
I like them, and they're very practical for moving. But I just like African, just that a lot more, you'd have to say. So not enough. I don't like the South American enough to go and have that as my primary focus. And there's people that do it better than I do, so I just keep in my lane, Anyway, so it's just, that's how it rolled. I just taught once a week, and quickly that was a sliding doors moment where just to keep, not have it as a financial focus, but just do it for the joy and spreading the nature of African rhythms. And it got more and more serious, and performances and people doing stuff and starting preschool shows here and there. But from my work, conservation work, also I had to skill up or upskill. And so I went and did some courses, and then the TAFE teachers were there, and they saw me do these courses and knew what I did. And I was talking at conferences, and I was doing public speaking for the Wilderness Society and getting educated on how to address the TV cameras and run public protests and stuff like that. So I was getting very much I was building my skill set of being a public person and working with groups indirectly. And then there was an opportunity to move to Sydney, and my partner at the time, she got a job with ACF in Sydney, or stay and do my work here. And so there was this whole thing of, we went to Sydney temporarily, but I kept on getting more job offers here in Newcastle. TAFE wanted me to teach, and they'd been offering me a job for 2 years but not coming through with the actual goods. So eventually I moved to Sydney. Then I got a job at Centennial Park, managing Centennial Park. But at the same time, TAFE offered me a job back up here, and I was still teaching drumming. And by that stage, all my friends were here, and I liked the lifestyle of the beach and surfing, which I'd started while I was up here. And I still hadn't gone to Bellingen, so I thought the relationship kind of broke down.
With Bellingen?
No, with my partner in Sydney. So she stayed in Sydney and I stayed in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And so I taught at TAFE, but it was part-time, and it allowed me to do more drumming and do more workshops. And then in 2012 I went to Hawaii.
To Hawaii?
And did drumming with Arthur Hull there. He's a drum circle facilitator guy, and he's really turned it into an art form.
Yeah.
So in 2015 I decided to leave TAFE after 10 years of doing that and do drumming full time, because I saw the opportunity to do it, not just African drumming, but use the African drums to create positive communities.
So the things that keep coming up in my mind are, I just want to ask you about rhythm, and I just want to ask you what you know and understand about community. Which one would you want to answer first?
Oh, sure. Well, rhythm's fine.
Do you think you could show me some rhythms?
I could, yeah. What, now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd probably, let's...
Is it hard to choose which drum?
No, it's not. It's just not here.
Just for reference, people listening, there's a lot of drums where we're sitting right now. 150 drums-ish, I believe, or maybe a touch less.
A touch less than that.
So choosing one might be a little tricky. We're going to go on a little adventure here and pick a drum.
Yeah, okay. So I've just got to get one. I think I've got to get it out of the car. But that's
this is the top one.
So it's in the car, it's in the van, so we'll have a look and see where it is. Yeah, it's a bit deep in there, but I'll get it. So this is the Djembe.
That's in the depths.
This is the Mamady Keita. Sorry about that. That might give a bit of feedback.
So there's about 30 drums in the van now. We've just gone and sourced the top drum.
Yep, that's right. So this is a Mamady Keita non-signature series drum from Guinea, and the late Mamady Keita, he's probably one of the best known West African djembe players.
This belonged to him?
Well, he hand selected these range of carvers to create these, and so he's sort of approved it. So it's just about the carving, the sound, the tones, the slaps. There's 3 basic sounds.
Walk us through it.
Yeah. Bass, slap, tone. The tones are sort of midway between the slap and the bass, So there's a whole lot more you can do with it.
Wow. What's your favourite rhythm?
Look, there's so many of them. We're doing a rhythm Zauli now, and if you look at that up, it's Zaouli, and it's incredible. It's a dance for women, but done by the men, and their legs are like jackhammers.
Oh, my mum showed me.
It's just so incredible.
It's really crazy.
Wild. Big mask.
Yeah,
You only see the bottom part of the person moving.
Have you tried the dance before?
No. I like the rhythm. I'm happy to do play the rhythm.
It's pretty intense, isn't it?
It's intense.
What's the rhythm for it?
Zaouli, it's just it's very complicated. So you just with the one djembe, the best sort of starting, and there's 8 breaks of Zaouli, so it's a lot. Yeah. Come and drum with me is the phrase. We always do the say play method. So come and drum with me, but there's all sorts of variations. Now there's also bass sections, and they all sound quite simple.
Yeah.
When they're played by themselves, but when they're played together, they create a complex polyrhythm along with the three...
Polyrhythm meaning?
Multiple rhythms.
Multiple rhythms, okay.
Yeah, that lock in. Yeah?
Gotcha.
So you have the dunduns,
yeah.
three levels, like the different tuning. Kankani is the high, sangban middle, and low is dundun.
Okay.
And so you have three of those going, three djembe parts. So you have 6 interlocking polyrhythms to create that one. There's 6 interlocking parts to create one rhythm.
Okay.
Yeah, which is Zowli. Yeah.
Wow.
Then you have all these breaks. So the break of Zowli, short break goes... Long break goes like this.
Wow.
So that's just one of the many, breaks.
I can see you change when you drum.
Right.
You're really lit up now. You can see your energy grow so much. Like, this is clearly the thing that you need to be doing. It's your space.
Yeah, it's just, and like I love it. It
makes me feel good. It makes you want to dance straight away. You feel happy pretty much straight away. And like you said before we started the podcast, that 1 hour a week of drumming that people get can be the baseline reset. And we'll talk about that soon. I want to jump on that soon. Yeah. The thing keeps coming from my head. Rhythm. I've come to understand that we're made up of various rhythms, like people, things, nature. If you look at physics and things like that, it turns out apparently that everything is an atom of some sort, and then its larger form, but it's held together at a rhythm vibrating. As far as we understand, I think, in science.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I've also learned that through changing rhythms in dance, song, drumming, you can actually shift how you are. But what do you understand about kind of like the deeper part of rhythm? Like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does rhythm mean to you?
Yeah, what does it mean to me? Well, the thing is, if we look at it from a mental health perspective and a physical perspective, like I think what you said there about the atoms and that anatomical structure, it's really a dualism, right? So things either attract or repel. So with your atoms, we're a cluster, we're accumulation of those things. So with rhythm, we all know you can see that when a boat moves through water, it moves it. When sound hits water, we can see that it moves it. You can put sand on a speaker, you can put things on a speaker and see how that moves. Rhythm moves it in a particular way, and there's this great people show how different elements move when sound is put through them.
Have you ever put a water into a sound bowl and used it?
Oh yeah, I haven't done that.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, how it moves.
It's fascinating. It's very strange. The water takes like strange shapes inside compared to the rhythm inside it.
Yeah, so and this is the thing, so we're primarily water, right? So the way that sound moves and affects just the water that we can see, it affects our body. So we have this emotional response when our bodies are moved. And for me, from what I've seen, drumming either repels or attracts. And it really does create quite a strong reaction because it's loud. So there's a lot of reasons for that. I've seen people attack me at a public event for a school. They attacked our drummers with a set of keys to try and make the music stop. They're having a very strong rejection of the sound, right? And there's kids around. It was a school fete. And this woman's trying to stab the drum skin to stop it.
With a key?
With a key.
Really?
I've seen people go into sort of semi-psychosis with it and get violent in the drum circles, like these free-form drum circles.
Yeah.
But what it is it's a strong reaction. So this is why it comes from the voodoo culture, I'm sure, because it creates a strong upheaval of emotion in people, and some people can't cope with that and other people can. Now this is all anecdotal, this is my stuff. I'm not talking about science or any research. It's just what I've experienced and I've read. and I've seen people do firsthand. But I've seen people come in and they've had a massive headache, and you think being in a loud drum circle would be the wrong kind of medicine, but their positivity and the effects of the sound fix them. Yeah. So we're getting a little bit off topic, but what the science shows is that with drumming, the loud sound reaches back into our heritage as humans, and it excites the amygdala. So it excites the mind because we think that it's something dangerous. The old reptilian part of our brain, but we see and we visualize with our eyes that no, we're safe. We're in this room and there's no dinosaurs chasing us, right?
Yeah.
But similarly, like I said to you earlier before too, like listening to AC/DC versus Bach, you have an emotional response to those two things differently. Well, it's all good to have music in our lives for uplift or changing our emotional state. But when you play music, now this is the important thing, when you play music with another person in real time, so we're here, we're not on a phone, we're not on Zoom, or we're not on the computer seeing somebody, we're physically seeing the other person's body language, but we're not having a verbal communication, we're having a non-verbal communication. We're drumming, but we're playing music in real time. So our synapses fire up, dopamines, endorphins, serotonin fuel the mind and make us feel good, And I see that more often than not in my drum circles, and that's what I work with in the therapeutic sense.
Yeah, right.
Of drumming, yeah.
So I wanted to go back to now what you offer through Earthen Rhythms, but that ties in really well because you were just showing me a poster before about it being Mental Health Month.
Yeah.
And so maybe we start with what you're doing for Mental Health Month, and then what other kind of things you offer with Earthen Rhythms.
Yeah, it's so Mental Health Month this month. Really, I'll continue my drumming, but we're leading the mental health walk in Newcastle, the wellness walk it's called, and then I'll be doing some African dance down in Lake Macquarie. So that'll be different for me. It's a good comeback for me because I tore both meniscus quite some time ago, and I used to do a lot of dance. So my confidence is returning for that, and just coming out of this space that we talk about, but having babies and just getting back and really appreciating
you're in
what
dad
I
mode
do
right now.
Yeah, working on my dad bod, but I'm trying to get out of that phase. So dancing is physical, and it's good for that as well, right? But in terms of, every Friday, whether it's Mental Health Month or not, I'm at Toronto Private Hospital running an hour-long drumming workshop for the...
You've done that for a while, right?
8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So lots of people, couldn't tell you how many people, but on average we're seeing a 30% decrease of anxiety and a 30% increase of happiness,
at the hospital,
well-being.
Is that just measured through like questionnaire and stuff like that?
Yeah, evidence-based stuff that we give a questionnaire to the people who come.
Wow. So through something that you just fell in love with and have carried on with, you're now actually able to change people's mental health, facilitate, I guess, getting healthier in their mind, in their space, just through drumming.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. So when I started, it was just adult classes, right? Then I was doing work with young kids, and somebody asked me to do a preschool. So I just started preschools, and I was good at it. I love kids. People say, how do you deal with 40 kids at a time? Well, you play a game and you keep the flow. You keep the flow of, and I can keep kids' attention for an hour. That's impossible for most people. Yeah. But I'm a child, and I'm leading them with that childlike energy with a tool that makes great sound that they want. They're moths to a flame. Yes. If you can make it all about fun, what I want to show kids, and my mission is to show kids, like sport can be socially inclusive and fun together, well, music can be like that. It has those elements. We don't have to do it individually, and it doesn't have to be a discipline. It can be social and fun.
That's true. Because sport's such a big thing, like especially in Newcastle here, and everyone's like, sport brings people to it. That's the thing here. But like, you go back not even that long ago, and it was, a lot of the time music was one of those big things that kept people together, and what people did in the evenings, they'd play piano or something like that, or That was the way of having fun, bringing your instrument along and jamming and singing songs and engaging in that way.
Yeah.
Dance too. In our culture, it feels a bit lost, you know.
It's just the specialisation, I think, and also Australia, like the focus on sport, for sure. We're taking nothing away from sport. It's so important, I think. But we've really got to focus on the performer and the audience in Australia. And so also I love breaking that down.
Yeah.
So when I play, I like inclusivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, do you want to touch on the other things then? Shall I talk about that? The other things that I do?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So African drumming's obviously a niche, but within that I have micro niches, preschools and ushers, so they're out of hours school care. So then I have primary schools and high schools. I do youth at risk. Not a lot, but I do that. Things like Harmony Day, multicultural activities, but getting kids to be in harmony with each other, showing the connections rather than the exclusive parts of the human, us humans. Then I do everyday adults, which I call, these kind of classes that I run in here, mental health drumming, and then corporate team building. And I have done in the past birthday parties and events, but I do a lot less of those because that's not what I like, focusing on regular and building things over time. Yeah.
So you have like a very multi-dimensional business. You go all over the place, all these micro communities, micro niches that you're involved with, and it all becomes this one big thing that is Earthen Rhythms.
Exactly.
Where can people find you?
Online is, obviously we're here in Newcastle, but physically, but online, we've got an online presence. So the Earthen Rhythms they've got the website, but on the Instagram and Facebook.
Brilliant.
Primarily. Yeah.
And any events that you have coming up as well in coming months?
Yeah, well, the Wellness Walk,
in
mid-October, 12th of October. At the end of the month, we have the African Dance. After that, we have, so also on that same day, we have the Suicide Prevention Network of Newcastle. They're hosting us to do a performance and an inclusive workshop. They're hoping to have about 160 people there at the 16 footers. So we'll be like one of the highlights of their event, and just showcase some of the wellness, because it's just like drumming is no silver bullet. I never sell it as that, but it's just one other quiver that people can have, one other arrow they can have in their quiver of dealing with mental health. Like, it's such a complex thing.
The more tools, the better, right?
More tools, the better.
That's right. Yeah. So if you're listening and you're in the Newcastle area, then feel free to jump online, check out earthenrhythms.com.au and go and check that out. I'll leave the link in the description below as well. Thank you for listening to the first part of our interview with Benjie. Next week, we have an amazing episode jam-packed with wisdom about business and community and how those two things marry together. This will release next Monday. If you're one of our regular listeners, or even if you're new here, I'd like to invite you to leave a star rating for us on Spotify or Apple Music, or even hit subscribe on YouTube. All of these things genuinely help us to get discovered by new listeners, and would be epic if you could help us out. Thirdly, Between Views is opening its Patreon community. If you'd like to join the community and receive weekly updates and ideas, then you can check it out at patreon.com/betweenviews. In other news, Between Views is always looking for collaborators. If you want to join the team or create something together, then please reach out on Instagram. Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or message us on Instagram. Thanks again, and see you soon. Between Views.